We're a government agency here in the Kansas City metropolitan area that provides construction licensing functions for about 3,300 companies. Probably the most noteworthy element about our program is that we have our foundation in continuing education. Each year, in order to relicense, the qualifying individual for the company is required to take 8 hours of continuing education, half of which has to be code education, and generally is in their field of professional specialty. In order to help our contractors achieve that goal, or in order to help our contractors accrue that education, we provide 2 education seminars a year. Over the course of the 2 seminars, we do about 120 classes. We bring nationally recognized experts here to Kansas City.
I'm an instructor for Johnson County Contractor License. I teach gas venting of appliances and how to properly vent and how to check for carbon monoxide poisoning. And my class, as you can see, usually holds about 80 students in it. So the program has not only been great for the other contractors to come out and get education from it, but it's gave them the conduit to communicate with the other building officials of different cities and jurisdictions and develop a working relationship with them. Makes our job easier. So where's this come up? You guys ever put in ring equipment? In the old days, every draft inducer had a 3-inch outlet on the draft inducer, right? The old Linux G16s with it. So on venting gas appliances, there's so many rules and regulations that it took 10 years of me studying the rules and regulations before I could even teach the class, and they couldn't find anybody else to teach it. So that's how I'm involved with them out here. I teach code classes, and I think it's been the avenue we've needed. It's looked at all over the country at what we're doing here and accomplishing, so it's a good program.
This year, we're probably going to touch about 1,200 people during our spring seminar, and during the fall seminar we'll touch another 3,000 or 4,000. Our education is accredited by organizations all over the state of Kansas, so we find that we get attendees not just from Johnson County and the Kansas City metropolitan area, but really we are a regional source for education.
My city has a wide-ranging inspection program. We are looking at the need to provide a further safety service for our citizens. Our concern is that we look at daycare facilities and places with at-risk individuals, vulnerable populations that may need some extra protection. They would never know if they had a carbon monoxide problem or other issues that I think this detector that we're looking at today would be helpful for us to find. Our main goal is to come into this program, gain a valuable tool that will help us, and I say us, my entire staff, to discover a new way to protect these vulnerable or at-risk populations, and hopefully we'll be able to make the community a little safer place based on that.
Last fall we provided education for people from 22 different states and 2 countries. We'll generally run 8 or 9 classes a day for between 80 and 120 people. And as I said, by bringing nationally recognized experts to our venue, and because we use code books as handouts for our participants, we're promoting a uniform understanding of the code. We think that's very important for contractors, building inspectors, and engineers, all 3 of whom are constituent groups for our education services. Our partnership in this education seminar this year, one of our classes with CO experts, has allowed us to provide all 80 attendees in the class with one of these portable CO detectors. They're extremely efficient detectors. They detect, I believe, down to 7 parts per million. Much more effective detectors for low-level carbon monoxide than you get with the typical home wall-mounted carbon monoxide detectors.
One of the code requirements that's in the 2012 codes is that we must install carbon monoxide detectors in the home. Some jurisdictions have amended this out of the codes. Few jurisdictions still have it, but one of the problems is that the CO detectors that are required to be put in have to be UL 2034 listed. And with the teaching that I do on the problems with carbon monoxide, we find that sometimes that doesn't alarm soon enough for the public. And there's just elderly people and young and sick and people with heart disease and lung problems. They need to be protected at a lower level than what the UL 2034 does. And I guess that's a way I'm tied in with Bob Dwyer and CO experts, as I recommend all the time, that people with health problems especially get introduced to these low-level alarms and get them installed in their houses.
We think carbon monoxide is a particularly important issue, not just for our mechanical contractors, but for everybody who lives and works in the built environment. Increasingly, we're finding that as houses are built tighter and tighter, as people are switching out old inefficient furnaces for higher efficiency furnaces and water heaters, fuel burning appliances, we're seeing the incidence in CO poisoning rise dramatically. It's virtually doubled in the last 5 years. One of the concerns that we have is that low-level carbon monoxide is increasing. There's an increasing body of information that tells us low-level carbon monoxide exposure is dangerous, particularly to young people and to older people. So as an agency, we've decided that we want to spearhead a movement to promote higher understanding of carbon monoxide poisoning. One of the ways that we're doing this is by having classes associated with the science of carbon monoxide and venting classes, but also by through distributing carbon monoxide detectors. We want to get portable carbon monoxide detectors into the pockets, if you will, of building inspectors, housing inspectors, emergency responders, HVAC contractors, and other stakeholders in the Kansas City metropolitan area who are in and out of houses and businesses frequently enough to provide for a broad spectrum of carbon monoxide sampling. We think that by getting these out into the community, one class at a time, that we're going to be able to get a better sense for where we have carbon monoxide problems. We're going to be able to reduce exposure overall in the community and heighten public awareness, not just on the part of the people carrying the detectors, the people attending our classes, but also the general public who are in houses and stores and buildings where carbon monoxide poisoning can be an issue.
I think the interesting thing is the lack of education that we have, because one of the biggest problems we have is that no one understands how dangerous carbon monoxide really is, and unless you attend classes like this and see devices that basically examine low-level exposure, you'll never even know it exists. And yet it's a very, very lethal scenario if it gets out of hand. And I think one of the educational points we gained today was that this device would show us the ability to catch a problem before it became lethal. And I think that's the most important part for our vulnerable population.